Welcome to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at Game 2 of the NBA Finals here, taking place on Sunday evening. A couple of days rest, as you usually get in between games here in the playoffs. Some surprising stuff, some interesting stuff, a lot of weird stuff, I would say, happened in that game. A few anomalies, a few things that we think will regress back towards the mean or down, depending on how you look at it. But we will take a look at some of the best bets in this one. We will also have a player props video up for you for Game 2. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we're bringing you each and every one of these NBA Finals games and player prop videos. Nate and the crew do have some great stuff on thelines.com as well, where you can find all the great written content these guys are putting out, as well as for the NBA, as well as other sports at this point. MLB going strong as well. Plenty of stuff to talk about there, but we are going to continue along with those NBA Finals. Want to make sure if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account as well, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we're going to talk about here for Game 2. Nate, let's get into it.
Game 2 on Sunday night. Yeah, that's surprising. The line, despite all that craziness, the line is the same. +4 Boston on the road. The only difference is the total has gone up about 4 points from 212 to 216. And I think that's what you can exploit here. Like you said, a lot of craziness and an NBA Finals record 43s combined between these two teams. Boston basically did not miss a three in the fourth quarter. The Warriors in the third had 38 points and were hitting a bunch of crazy off-balance threes. And in the first quarter, the Celtics decided they weren't going to guard Steph Curry, which led to a finals record 6 threes in the first. So I don't think any of that's happening again. That's the first thing you can look at and say there's going to be a few less points here because that there's some regression that's going to happen in terms of the quality. I mean, the quality of looks wasn't even great aside from that Steph opening. It was just everybody stepping up, hitting clutch shots. The pace of that game was only 93.5 though. And both teams truly elite in this situation. Boston, a 102 defensive rating on the road in these playoffs. The Warriors are 103 at home, allowing about 103 points per game. They were on pace to allow that and on pace to score there before, of course, the greatest fourth quarter comeback in finals history. I think they're the first team to ever come back to be down 12 and win by 12 in finals history. It was simply baffling, insane that the Warriors disappeared, didn't score for about 5 minutes. I don't know.
To that point, what if you? I took the C's +8 at one point, or like in the third quarter. What if I had taken an alt line of like -8? I probably would have made a fortune off of it. Just crazy how big that turnaround was.
Yes, but you'd also be a complete savage for doing such a ridiculous thing like that, because I don't know how you expect every single time Al Horford or Derek White to shoot for it to be twine in. So look, I mean, the C's did find something by going even smaller, putting Peyton Pritchard out there and being able to pressure the ball. They didn't even have Rob Williams back there as a line of defense, but they didn't really need him because running the Warriors off the line seems to be a better result for them than chasing them around the perimeter, because really where they were getting burned after they figured out that they could press up on Steph was with the offensive rebounds. Kevon Looney, 6 on his own. The Warriors had 12 as a team. That led to 26 second chance points, some big backbreakers after they played a great defensive possession. And then they weren't in position to get the board because they were scrambling so much on the perimeter to deny these shots. So that, I think, is why Boston was able to close out a lot of those defensive possessions in the fourth, going smaller, being able to stay on the perimeter and still have bodies down low, because they can still rebound with those wings. They don't need to be big to rebound. And then Looney can't stay on the floor because Boston's moving the ball too quickly. As many people have said, they kind of out-Warriors the Warriors in the fourth quarter there. The Warriors are going to adjust their defense too, though, right? I mean, they were kind of playing too much drop coverage, daring the Celtics, certain guys to shoot threes for the Celtics, and we saw how that worked out for Milwaukee and Miami. Sometimes good, but sometimes that just gives a guy like Derek White confidence, and now he can just drain, when you leave him open or even when it's contested. So I mean, I think that their defense will be much better. Draymond will ensure that.
You would think, yeah, it's going to be. I think it's a lot more switching too, right? Like you were saying, and that's what the C's did differently. In the first half, between the first half and the second half, was I believe there was a stat that they were switching on only about like 15% in the first half were the C's, and then and thus Steph Curry wide open, letting him get around screens, going under screens against Steph Curry, things of that nature in the first quarter, switching that to about 35% of the time they were switching on defense were the Celtics. So to your point about the Dubs making that adjustment, I think it's probably some of the same stuff there, right? To start switching more and not give that barrage of open threes that they were giving to the Celtics, especially in the fourth.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's a lot of momentum for the Celtics to pick up defensively after what they did in the fourth quarter. There's a lot of bounce back momentum from the Warriors. But as far as the line, yeah, I could not in good conscience take the Warriors to even on the money line after that. That is such a gut punching loss, even though they looked like they were in complete control for three quarters to a degree. I mean, there was, but the fact that they had that lead, let it go at home to open this series, couldn't really find anything consistent outside of Steph tipping the floor. And then that Tatum had 12 points on 3 for 17 shooting, and they did everything they could to get the ball out of his hands. But Boston showing that they're just very balanced. Rob Williams looking healthy is a big deal as well. Draymond going 2 for 12 when he's basically left open for layups has a lot to do with Williams lurking there. And of course, Al Horford, who, when they go smaller, can still space the floor and still protect the rim. Had an absolute throwback game on the eve of his 37th birthday. So my preferred bet here, yeah, like I said, we're looking at the under here just because of the regression that you got to assume is coming. So my favorite play would be to tease the Celtics up to 8, take that under, or similarly to like we both live betted game one, is if the Celtics are down, that does not mean they're out. We've seen this time and time again in the playoffs. They got down 28 in game 3 against Miami, still only lost by 6. So look at for that value on the live betting in terms of them keeping it close. But in a close game, I still think the Warriors can pull it out, win by 1 to 10 points. So that's another thing I would look at. And the officials, even if it's not Scott Foster, the officials are going to be leaning a little bit towards Golden State, so we don't have a 4 or 5 game NBA Finals, so we have a competitive Finals.
Yep, and our good buddy Mo, and baseball writer who joins us on the MLB Coast to Coast podcast too. We were just BSing with him about the game, and he brought that point up, as he's always want to do, talking about the referees because it does impact betting at times. But I think this is one where you can agree with him that I think you might see a few interesting calls for in favor of the Warriors to keep this series going, as you said. Can't bet on that though. I would start with what you were saying there in terms of the defense and what I kind of interrupted you to talk about too in terms of the switching. That's where I start with the Dubs. That's got to be their first sort of change that they make on defense. That current squad take a look at and go, okay, well, we just can't give up this many threes. And the thing interesting about Boston coming into this was the 3-pointer for them isn't necessarily like their life's blood the way that it is for the Dubs, because even if the Dubs don't shoot a 3, the fear that Steph Curry will either shoot a 3 or find a wide open Clay, or even Jordan Poole, who had a terrible game, but even if he's wide open, the fear is they're going to create that, which would lead to layups. That's how you find yourself in this position where Kevon Looney is getting dunks wide open, or Draymond's at the rim getting layups, missing a lot of them in game 1. But so it's the fear of the 3. On the C side, the 3-pointer is this thing where it's this tool that they can use that if they pull it out, it's kind of like they just leveled up, essentially, right? They just got like a 50+ bonus on their ceiling, and it raised it because they don't need it. They could win without hitting 21 3-pointers. Not in this game because of the way that they did not come out strong on defense. But honestly, the way they played defense in that fourth quarter, and you could even make the case in the second quarter, still giving up a good amount of points, but scoring more and really, finally doing the job they needed to on Steph with 0 points in that second quarter after getting the 21 in the first. That's what I think is the norm, right? I think a lot more of what you should expect in this game. And to your point, not wanting to necessarily take the Warriors right away and just go, it's a bit of a fish move to just go, the Warriors aren't losing, right? You should even at the very least hit their money line at minus 170 in some way and bank on that because they're not losing, right? And it's like, don't go there yet, man. And that's the same principles that we used in game one to go, you could see the C's, not necessarily benefiting from the rest or not sort of being at a detriment because they played 2 7-game series in a row. The Dubs have been kind of waiting around. You're saying, it wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors obviously go up 1-0. But at the same time, like the +4 and the fact that, everybody started going towards the Warriors, the sharp started hitting the C's at +4 and even above. Everything was sort of started to lean towards wait, like, if any team can stop this team on defense, it is the C's. And even when they were giving up those barrage of threes to Steph in the first quarter, we were texting like, wait, hold on a second. Like the Dubs can't do anything on offense unless Steph Curry is given a wide open 3. So the defense that we expect the Celtics to be able to play on the Warriors and all of the Warriors, not just Steph, which they were guarding everybody else just as well as they could outside of Steph in that first quarter. At that point you're going, yeah, that's what we expected here was the C's defense, the best in the league, able to handle this team. I also expected, the Warriors defense, the second best in the league all season, to be able to handle the C's better than they did. I mean, as well as they did up until that fourth quarter. I thought that was also on par. Look, Al hitting the threes and Derek White hitting the threes. Once again, another anomaly a lot in a big way to me, just because a lot of them were, a couple of the Derek White threes were very well covered. I thought Al had a ton of wide open threes, maybe at least 3 or 4 of those 8. I thought he was like pretty wide open, which is also not a fluke. That's a part of their offense, which is if you're going to overload on these two guys when we have Jalen and Jason, even on the same half of the court, then that's fine. We'll keep swinging it to Al Horford. And like you said, they out Warriors the Warriors in terms of the offense that they played, keeping that beautiful game going and just finding the open guy. Marcus Smart, super efficient as well, 4 of 7 from 3, although he didn't play as much in that fourth quarter because honestly, his defense on Steph was not good. It was actually, he was getting torched and sort of getting screened in a way that you found Steph wide open off the dribble and things like that. So Derek White, the 31 minutes came because he was hitting those threes and that 21 points, but it also became because his defense on Steph, the 4 minutes or so that he was specifically guarding Steph and chasing him around, he did a really good job on him. And he at least limited his shot attempts, which is crucial because if he gets it off, it's likely going in. It's more about not even letting him get the shot off. So all that to say, for now about this game, I'm with you once again on an under. I felt good that the under was coming because, as I was watching that game and seeing how it was going, I was already thinking to myself, what's this total going to be at for game 2? I can't wait. I hope it's at like 217 so I could take it at the under. Close. It's at 215 and a half, right? 216 or so. So I still feel good about it. I feel even better about a little tease up to 220 because once you get to 220, I'm like, no. This has to go under. If the C's didn't go crazy the way they did in the fourth, you still probably would have had an under with a tease in that first game, right? Where it ended at about 214 was where that total ended a few hours before game time. So I tried to tease that under with the C's. I got them at +8. I got the total at 218 and a half. I was feeling really good about it. Even going into the fourth quarter, I was like, we could still do this, y'all, especially the way people's sphincters tightened up in the fourth of these finals games. And that was the opposite of what happened for the C's, but I just don't think that's sustainable. So I still feel good about that tease you threw out there, which I tried to take in game 1, and I'm going right back to the well with it in game 2.
Yeah. Look, I mean, this might seem kind of overwhelming after game 1 because it was like 4 different games per quarter, basically. But
totally.
I'm just going to go back to what I think Tim Bontemps said on the Low Post podcast about the Heat series with the Celtics, that this is not confusing to me. It boils down to if the Celtics don't do dumb shit like turn the ball over, they're going to win because they're a superior team. And you just flip it to the other side of the floor in this series. If the Celtics don't do dumb shit like sag off Steph Curry, they're going to win or at least keep the game competitive enough for your under to hit for this to be close down the stretch. I don't know. It's still the big wild card is the Celtics experience. And that was a big talking point coming into this one is that, 0 finals games experience between any of them and the Warriors with like 100. But they are experienced in close playoff games, winning them on the road. They're now 8-2 on the road. The thing is, when they get down to these one possession games down the stretch, especially if Tatum Still a wild card whether he's going to be able to find his shot, his rhythm against a Warriors team that has bothered him. I know he's bounced back with 30 plus in 3 straight after his worst games in the previous series, but not really willing to bank on that. And he's been their crunch time offense, the Celtics, when it is close. Marcus Smart trying to be that offense, and I think he's 3 for 20 in the last 3 minutes of games in these playoffs. So that is why I lean towards the Warriors if it does wind up being a close game down the stretch. But I don't think they're going to cover 4, let alone 8 points if you tease it. So win margin 1 to 10 for the Warriors is plus 170. You could tease the Celtics up. You could tease the Warriors, get them at the money line with this under, still feel good about it. Because I think the biggest thing we're looking at here is these crazy shots that everybody was throwing up and it oscillated back and forth between which team. It's just, it can't last. It's going to be a little more nip and tuck here in game 2.
I would agree. You could talk about too how there's going to be some upward, regression for guys like Tatum. I do believe in that sort of. We've now seen it 3 specific times where he's had 10 or 12 points 3 times in these playoffs, and the next game he had 30, 31, and 30 points. So I consider that. We can talk a bit more about that in player props for a minute and see where we go there, especially because the assist for him, which we talked about before game 1, we said 7.5. I believe it was 12.5 rebounds and assists combined. We were like, yes, love that over, despite loving the under on his points and 3-pointers made, loving those ancillary stats because of what he's done already in the games in the playoffs where he's not scoring as much. His assist numbers have stayed up around 7 or 8. He's had a ton of assists against the Warriors as well, who cannot necessarily match with his size on the wing. So he's passing over a ton of guys, and he let the game come to him despite that awful, shooting 3 for 17 in terms of playmaking with those 13 assists that got you over that anyway. He's still in the series. He's not completely just taken out of the game when his shot's not going in, and that's why he's at 24 still. He's on the way to top 5 in the NBA for sure if he's not already there. So I do believe in him, and that's kind of what I said the last time this happened, and I feel I'm having a little deja vu now where the last time you had like 12 points, you said the same thing. I think you're covering, you're sort of hedging your emotions by not putting your stock in Jason Tatum coming back and lifting you guys, but I think you're going to get a big game from him, and I think what that also means though is he's going to take away some shots. I mean, 17 shots for him is actually not that much, right? If he's not above 20, you're kind of like, all right, he wasn't shooting that much, and that's also a credit to him because it wasn't going in, and he wasn't going to pull it 25 to 30 times and force that game and then just lose it for his team. So kudos to him. I think the other part of this is on the other side of the ball, and Jordan Poole. I actually don't know that he's going to regress back upward. That was a very poor game for him. He was minus 19, worst on the team. A bunch of his other stats that I have in here that really, it kind of torched the Warriors because he was not only a no-show with the 9 points, 28% from the field, 20% from 3. His 4 turnovers were the most on the team and in the game. And that defensive rating of 131 is why is more than the bad shooting, because 2 for 7 for him from the field is like, all right, not a good game, but only 7 shots. It doesn't hurt them. You're fine with him taking 7 shots, even if he only makes 2, because, you'd be fine with him taking more shots. But he got absolutely torched by Jaylen Brown when he had to be matched up on him. They went hunting Jaylen Brown specifically just went hunting for him on those second unit lineups where JB just loves to just be by himself and goes, great, no Tatum to even consider passing to. I'm allowed to take every single shot if I want to, even though he does pass out of it sometimes. That 131 defense rating from Poole also came from having to guard Derek White, who was hitting a bunch of his threes on Poole, who to his credit was, he guarded him to a degree. Derek White took some not open, a bunch of contested threes that went in and just got hot and then just kept feeling it. But if Poole can't be on the floor, you just really gone from, that extra weapon that you really needed on offense that they don't have. It's going to hurt them. And it hurts Clay as well when Poole's on the floor and not making shots, and you're not as worried about him. Now you can face guard Clay. And if you can face guard Clay and force him to be taking, 17-foot fadeaways that went in this game as really his only means of scoring, that's fine. It's as long as you're running him off that 3-point line. So under, we'll get into some other player stuff in that props video. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. We are going to continue along with you guys with every single playoff game here in the finals with a video and these player props. So until we see you next, happy betting.